All right, we're going to work on the Adalene Solution from Chapter 12. This is exercise 3, the first intermediate exercise. And the first thing we want to do is open up this application. So here it is. Let's look at the form, which has already been created for us. And we have a database here, right? Adalene.mdf. And this table is going to show either the results from all the stores, only company-owned stores, or only franchises. So let's double click on the data set over here. And we can see the stores table, and we have our table adapter. Let's create a new query. So I'm going to right click on that and go to add query. We're going to create this query using SQL statements, and we are selecting which rows are returned. So here's our default query. This is just selecting everything, and I'm going to go into the query builder and make this window a lot bigger. All right, so we can see that we have our data up here, and we want to be able to run this only for franchises or company-owned stores. And I see ownership here is the field that I'm going to be querying. I'm going to put some sort of filter on this so I know if this is a company-owned or franchise store. But I don't even know what this data is. So at first, I'm just going to execute this query so I can see everything. Okay, so this is important that I can see that ownership is either a C or an F, right? So on my filter, I can put C in here and then execute again, and it only shows me company-owned. Or I can change this filter to an F, and it updates my query here. I can execute it, and it gives me that. So what I really want to do is add a parameter in here for ownership. Okay, so now and you can see the at ownership here, that's representing a parameter is like a variable in SQL. So now when I execute this query, it says, what's the value of ownership? I can say it's C, and it gives me all of those. Or if I execute it again, I can say it's F. It gives me franchises. Or I can say it's G, and it gives me nothing. All right, so this is my parameterized query that I'm filtering on ownership. So I'm going to say, okay, that's my query. Hit next. This is going to be named fill by ownership and get data by ownership. Hit next, finish. So now I have a parameterized query. So I have this query here, which gives me everything. And then I have this one. If I go to preview data, let's give this a value of F, and I hit preview, and it gives me all the franchises. Or I can change this, what was it, C, hit preview, and it gives me all the company owned. Okay, so those are my queries. I'm going to save this. Let's go back to the form and double click on display. And what happens when we click on the display button? Well, I have these radio buttons here, right? And one of these is going to be checked. So this one is rad all, this is rad company, and this is rad franchise. All right, so let's write some if statements. I'm going to say if rad all dot checked, then, and what I need to do is I need to take this stores table adapter, and I'm going to fill it with the dataset stores. Otherwise, else if rad company dot check, then I'm going to take the stores table adapter and I'm going to fill by ownership. I'm pulling it from the stores table, and I have to give it that parameter. What is that ownership parameter? And if company is checked, then that ownership parameter is a C. So did that. Let's just run it to see how it works so far. Now, when the form first loads, it loads everyone because of this line right here. All right. And actually, if we take this and we comment it out, maybe we don't want to load everything when it first runs. Okay, then when you say all stores display, it pulls up all stores. If I say company owned, hit display, it only gives me the company owned. If I say franchise and hit display, nothing happens because I don't have that code written yet. Okay, so we're almost done. Uncomment that thing that we commented. If you commented that out, uncomment that. So I'm going to add another else if here. So I took that, copy, paste. This is going to be rad franchise. Rad franchise, we're going to fill it with an F. And that should be the only thing that you can choose is one of these three radio buttons. But, you know, I like to put in some sort of error. Let's say we'll say invalid radio button. This should never happen, right? But just in case it does, let's say someone comes to this forum and they add another radio button here and the code hasn't been updated for it. We want to make sure we handle that. Okay. Run this one more time. When it first loads, it loads up all the data. If I say franchises, it gives me just franchises, company owned, just company owned, or all stores, looks like that. So the only other thing you might want to do here, instead of using if, else, end if, you could put all of this into a switch, right? And you can refer back to A4.4, starting on page 142 of the book, but really the part that you're interested in is page 143 of the book. That's your select case for using radio buttons. So I think it's a little bit cleaner code if you use a select case, but I think also if, else is a little bit easier to understand. So that's it. That's your Adalene solution.